Let's get moving.
Music bed. Welcome once again to another edition of the Kingsmen Roundtable podcast. I'm Denise Beachley, and I will be your host today. Wanted to let y'all know that I was randomly yesterday looking up, for some reason, our living ex-presidents, our living presidents, because I did include Joe Biden in there. And I realized that out of our 6 living presidents or ex-presidents, 3 of them were born within 2 months of each other.
Oh, wow.
Donald Trump, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton were all born between June of 1946 and August of 1946.
Oh, interesting. What do you think that means?
Interesting fact. I don't know.
Oh.
I just thought it was interesting.
That is
they were all
interesting.
born within
Yeah.
2 months of each other.
Wow.
Okay. Anyway. And our co-host today, as always, Bill.
Oh, welcome. I do have a fun fact today. The one I picked up yesterday was, and this is appropriate for recording a podcast, wearing headphones for 1 hour increases the bacteria in your ears by 700 times.
Ew.
Okay. Does everybody want to keep going now?
This podcast will not last an hour.
Right. Oh, so we're only at 350 times?
That's right. Talk fast.
Wow. Does that make you feel better about doing a podcast now?
Yeeks.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Moving right along. Also joining us, Frank.
Welcome.
Oh,
Welcome.
thief.
My fun fact for today is that a group of hedgehogs is called a prickle. So that seems on point.
Oh, God.
I wonder if a group of porcupines is the same thing.
That's pretty good
Very on
because
point.
it's a fun fact with a pun,
That's right.
Yes.
right? It's the twist.
That makes it
I
punny.
like punny. God, yes, you're right. Very punny.
And also joining us is Greg.
Hello. My fun fact is on the first day of filming, Carrie Fisher slapped Oscar Isaac over 40 times. They had to retake it over and over and over again.
Really? What was the slap about?
I think he was trying to take on a Star Destroyer all by himself or something like that.
That's awesome.
That's great.
That's good. Okay.
Excellent.
All right.
All right, let's dive in. This time for our stories for the court, we only have one story, but I want to get into it a little bit more than we normally do because it's something that we don't hear AI being used a lot for. So the first story that we're going to talk about is how AI is being used to identify criminals through their driving patterns. Looks like a little bit different implementation for AI than some of the things we typically talk about. So I thought it was interesting. Hope that y'all did too. Frank, any thoughts here?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of what we hear lately is generative AI, so large language models or image generation, but predictive analytics have been around for a long time, and this is really a use of that, which has been used for years, I think. I think we're just hearing about it now, and this and other types of AI, which has been around, is getting more publicity because of all the generative AI news. I don't have any issue with this. They're using, license plate readers to kind of monitor patterns of traffic where people are heading to areas where there's known drug deals, and so they identify that this certain person was constantly taking this route up and down and having very short stays at the destination and turning right around and heading back. And they were able to identify that this is a likely a drug dealer.
Yep. Greg, what do you think?
I have mixed feelings on it because I think that there's a lot of, if they're going to use it for police stops and stuff like that, there's a lot of baggage and bad history around, police pulling people over for a missing taillight and stuff like that. And is it just going to increase that kind of problem? But maybe if it gets well tuned enough, they could start enforcing some of the very difficult things, like maybe this person is texting while driving and things that actually matter more and affect the public safety.
Okay. It's interesting that you say that. A friend of mine, and don't quote me on the statistics because I do not know them, but a friend of mine who is a police officer said a lot of times that they will pull people over for a broken taillight because they assume that if your taillight is broken, there's something else that they can get you for as well. And 9 times out of 10, the broken taillight is the tip of the iceberg. So there's something else that they're doing wrong as well. Anyway,
Yeah.
Bill, what do you think?
Makes sense. I mean, I'm with you. What occurs to me is probable cause and due process. I mean, so while it is a really cool story that they're able to take this data of what was it, 6 million cars a week, that they're tracking license plates on, and 400 or 500 cameras in that area, and the fact that they were able to say that that's considered probable cause. I don't know. It makes me worry a little bit, right? Because what's the definition of probable cause then? I mean, now you can pull somebody over because their driving habits, they're not breaking any laws. They haven't done anything. Like, I get the taillight thing, right? I mean, because that's always the thing. It was like, oh, you broke, even in the movies, some guy would break the taillight and go, hey, you got a taillight on.
Yep.
That was the probable cause. But now, what's probable cause?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't know. Legally, how does that stand until something gets decided? I could see that going to like all the way to the Supreme Court. Like that, something happens.
Supreme Court.
Yeah, and then it just keeps going all the way up because people are going to be like, I don't know what's probable cause at this point. Like, what would you guys say it is? I mean, how do you define probable cause now?
Yeah, it's always been a bit nebulous. You didn't always have to have complete facts about somebody broke the law. There was just some circumstantial evidence that accumulates to enough of a degree where you're like, okay, there might be something here, and then they can take the next step. So I think this is more of that, but it's definitely a gray area. I think over the next few years, we'll see more and more AI contributing to the circumstantial evidence, and there probably will be litigation about that.
That's where I was going to go next, is where do we think that this will go from here? Because if what he was doing was driving to a specific area and coming back, did he actually break a law before they pulled him over? And if you extrapolate that, what's the next thing that somebody's going to start looking at?
I don't think there's any end to it. That's the problem
Yeah.
with it. It's like maybe he was just going to see his great aunt who is older, and go and see her twice a month or once a week or something like that. And you're like, okay, now what are they going to do, right? I mean, you start bringing in a lot more data together. You start taking your phone and your GPS coordinates and your license plate, and you didn't stay overnight, or you came back within so many hours. What other things can they look at? It's everything, every part of your life, right? If everything's being tracked, I mean, there's the upside, but there's always the downside, right? And the bad actors, usually far outweigh the good ones. So that's the problem. As long as it doesn't happen to you, everybody's gonna be like, oh, I'm good with it. But could you imagine if you got pulled over and they went through your car or did whatever, and you didn't do anything wrong? It was just because some AI tool. Right, it's like we saw that in the Ninja, right? The video the other day. I mean, it was like, there's enough bad actors, and now you've got personal information about people. What's protected, what isn't?
Right.
I mean, do you have to have a certain level of something to get this extra personal information? Because I would consider that pretty personal, right? I mean, before it was like, well, you got cameras everywhere, so you're going to be watched. Okay, and now not only are you going to be watched, but they're going to be bringing together data from potentially all kinds of things. And some of it's going to be like, holy cow, you would have never caught that person. But there's going to be a lot of situations where it's like, until the tools get very mature and they've worked through a bunch of snags, there's going to be a lot of people who get caught up in stuff.
Yeah, and you're making an assumption.
Right. And then think about it. It's not like DNA where it's like you can test the DNA and it's either you or it's not you. Now you've got some tool that says you were doing something and that's what they acted upon. Now you got to you're in court now trying to prove your innocence against something that isn't even a real thing. I mean, I could see a lot of ABC movie of the weeks that come out of this.
The ABC After School Special.
Right.
Greg, what do you think? Got anything else?
I think that it's an interesting use case, but I think that you can rely too much on the technology, and that it's going to create a lot of false negatives.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see where it goes from here.
Yeah. It's pretty cool technology. I mean, if you're not the one getting caught, I'm like, that's awesome. That's fantastic. But
Well, and I think if you're getting caught actually doing something wrong, if they're not making assumptions based on where you're driving.
yeah, but what if they stop you and you didn't? You'd still be pretty, especially if you were late for a meeting.
But if they're stopping you because you did something wrong, if you're not just being stopped because you drove through a particular area over time, if they stop me, it's probably because I was speeding.
Yeah.
That
That's
means
okay.
I did something wrong.
Yeah, that's okay. If they're stopping you for probable cause that they see you
I
doing
did something
you
wrong.
shouldn't be doing, yes.
And then they say, okay, well, you went into all these places, and
Yeah, that would be a little different to me. But
Yeah.
starting there, that could get hairy.
Right.
I mean, especially since the people who are using it, AI is so fresh still that a lot of people don't really realize. Even in one of the articles we read today, they talked about it being Google. And I'm like, really? Another article about AI where they're talking about that this is taking over Google, and it's like, it's not a search engine.
Yep. Yeah, I noticed that as well.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. We're going to go to the take or toss now. And again, we have one topic here. Decide whether we want to take or toss it, and we'll see if we can dive into this one a little bit deeper. Because in a couple of different episodes, we have talked through, and I think we brought up probably 3 or 4 different startups that were getting ridiculous amounts of money as they got into the AI business. And this particular article indicated that about 85% of AI startups are projected to be out of business in 3 years. And it looked like, as you were reading through there, a lot of those will be successful, or probably going to be successful, maybe not necessarily based on the technology that they're getting into, but based on who it is that's doing the startup. And I think it was maybe Kevin who mentioned that in one of our earlier startups, that some of these are going to be successful probably because of who it was, not necessarily what they were doing. Greg, you got any thoughts here?
Yeah, I hate statistics. I feel like you can say anything you want with numbers like that, especially when you're just making a guess about something that's going to happen in 3 years. I think my first question was, what's the success rate of any startup in technology?
Yeah, right. Good point.
How different is it from the general landscape? And just because they're AI, and that's what they're talking about right now. So I'm not that surprised, honestly, that there's a high fail rate. I do agree, though, that a lot of the biggest winners are the ones that are striking partnerships with the big companies. Like I think we talked about it, the last episode was about Shutterstock and how they had a good winning strategy. And I think that a lot of startups that can strike those deals are probably the ones that are going to do well.
Okay.
Yeah, good point.
Bill, what do you think?
I thought it was an interesting article. I mean, I'm with Greg. I mean, startups are tough.
Never agree.
I didn't agree.
You just didn't say the word agree.
Yeah, well, that's different. But startups are just historically don't have a high success rate to start with. What was also interesting in the article is that they finally get to the point where we're like, what's going to happen to these things? Sure, there's going to be people who just don't fail, and I think the people who do get hooked up with the big guys probably will have a better chance. But we're all startups are always looking for the same thing. It's like, I want to get bought out, right? So, okay, is that part of the statistic? Because it kind of was. He kind of got there in the article and said, well, a lot of them will be bought up, and and it's like, okay, yeah. So does that mean you failed? Or you're out of business? So is that really part of the 85%? I'd say no.
Yeah.
Like if you're just talking about these companies would have never made it and the people who started them would not have been successful, then the number's probably nowhere near 85%, right? I just don't think that's what it's going to be. I think the article was right about it's going to change a lot of industries, and maybe some industries almost go away, but there's going to be lots of new industries that we probably aren't even thinking of right now that will be industries in 5 years that will be like, oh, that's a brand new industry. It's like that thing didn't even exist 5 years ago. So I think just like always, people are going to figure out how to make money, and people are going to figure out how to be successful. And they're all the end game hasn't changed. You're still either trying to get super huge and be one of those, unicorns, or you're looking for somebody to purchase you and cash out. So I don't think that that's going to change. I don't think any part of that is going to change.
Yep. Frank?
I think it was complete clickbait for a couple of reasons. So the first one, which Bill kind of touched on, was that if you actually read the article, he said there would be 2 reasons why somebody would not be in business. That was in the title of the article, that 85% would not be in business. They'd either run out of cash or they'd be gobbled up by a bigger company. So again, I don't think that's a failure. They're not in business anymore, but the headline of the article made it seem like, they failed. The second one is I looked up the statistics, and 70 to 90% of startups fail depending on the specific sector they're in.
Wow.
So 85% is not
low.
a stretch. Yeah, I mean, it's right in the range. So it's not like this guy is some kind of genius for coming up with the prediction, or if it's out of bounds of where people are going to be shocked with 85%. That's wild. That's my take. It was clickbait. You can't prove it wrong until it happens, but it's probably right in the range of any normal tech startup. I don't disagree with the number. I think there's a lot of competition for small pieces of pie of different types of AI with image generation or content generation. So I think that's definitely the case. And again, the ones who are successful, a lot of those will be bought up by Meta or Google or whoever. Get acquired, and then they're no longer in business. So then they would be part of that 85%, which isn't disingenuous though.
Yeah.
That's a great point on the numbers. 60% of the time, it works every
Every
time. Yeah, good take.
Yep. All right. Anything else there?
No, I think Frank got it. It's clickbait. I love it.
That's awesome.
Clickbait. Oh, that's
Yep.
good.
Okay, so let's see where we've
Wow.
got at the end of our take or toss round, we've got Greg and Frank tied with 6 points, and Bill with his co-hosting duties. It's a good thing you were just a co-host because you're in 3rd place.
And you said duties.
I said duties. That I did.
Wait, am I in 3rd place or am I in 2nd?
Last.
Last. Okay, right. Okay.
You're in
Fair
third.
enough. Fair enough. Either way, it's last.
That's all.
Yes. It would be 3rd.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so we're going to go on to the joust round. And this one was a little dry, but that's okay. We will clear out our points.
And I'm out, right?
You are out.
Figures. Oops.
You got the mega buzzer.
Good. All right, that's fine. Oops.
You didn't get negative points.
Nope.
You're done.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. We will have a winner at the end of this if we decide we have a winner, and then one of you will get to speak on a topic of your choice. Or, since I know that you both have prepared topics, I might let you both speak. Depends upon if I'm getting cranky or not.
There's always a twist.
That's right. Denise might get cranky between now and then. Okay. We were tied. So Greg won last time. Frank wasn't here last time. We'll let Greg go first.
Oh.
Our joust topic, debating the claim that ChatGPT's mathematical output is deteriorating over time. The real reason I picked this is because I'm curious if we think that all of the responses we're getting back from ChatGPT are deteriorating. But I will let you decide whether or not you want to include that in your response to this. Greg?
Oh boy, I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Excellent.
I think that first of all, it's the wrong tool for the job. Like, it's Chat GPT. It's not Math GPT. Like, you're trying to use it for the wrong thing, and I think it's like you just hinted at. Maybe it's not so much the fault of the LLM, but as more and more and more people are using it, maybe they're just getting dumber prompts as it gets used by more humans.
Well, that's an interesting point. So your premise is that it got trained on stuff, and then people are using it, and since people aren't very intelligent, It's getting worse.
Yeah, really, really smart people built it,
Right.
and now everyone's breaking it.
Right. Now the bell curve is bringing everybody back towards the middle.
That's awesome. Frank, what do you think?
It's a large language model. It's a next word predictor. It is not a calculator. If you're not using code interpreter when you're asking it mathematical questions, you're doing it wrong. It's completely the wrong use case. You should not expect it to be good at finding prime numbers. So that's my take. Before I quit Reddit, and also on Twitter for the last couple of months, I've seen a ton of people mentioning they think it's getting worse. There have been a number of tweaks that the OpenAI staff has made to try to kind of align it, keep people from doing jailbreaking, some other things like that. So I have no doubt that the output has changed, and maybe with certain prompts it's gotten worse. In our use cases internally at Kingsmen, I've not seen any sort of degradation in the quality of the output. In that paper, a lot of the examples they used were pretty contrived. It seems like way outside the bounds of what the average person would be using it for. So I don't put a lot of weight into the fact that the results they got.
Yeah, if you're a data scientist, are you really using ChatGPT to do high-end, very detailed, numbers and analytics and there's tools out there already that are probably a million times better. Why would you?
And faster.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you're trying to solve math problems with it, it's the wrong thing. But again, you can get great results. Just use code interpreter when you ask it, and it'll create very complex mathematical formulas and stuff that it'll solve.
Interesting.
Well, it's an interesting take because my first thought was honestly, are other responses deteriorating over time? Which brings me back to what Greg said: is it getting dumber as people started to use it and maybe retrain it? I would have never thought to ask ChatGPT to give me mathematical output. That's not where I would have gone to get an answer to a mathematical problem, but that's just me. Anyway.
I agree.
Okay. Anything else on this topic?
I mean, if it's true that it is actually getting worse, that makes me feel better about job security. That it's not actually going to destroy everyone's jobs everywhere. They're not taking over anytime soon still. We're safe from the robots.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is there's lots of variability if you've got the temperature set at the default. So you can ask it the same question over and over. Sometimes it may give you the right answer, sometimes not. If you're trying to ask it a factual question and treating it like Google, which again is not the right use case for it.
So maybe 1 + 1 will not be 2.
That's correct.
In alternate universes, that may be true.
Yeah, that's the new math. Yeah.
Right.
That's right. All right. So with all of that said, we're going to declare.
Oh, she's finding it.
Our winner is Greg.
Oh, he's stringing them together.
And Greg, we will give you the microphone for a little bit if you'd like to tell us about your topic.
Going back to the police using the AI to analyze people driving, I think they should use something similar and see how that gets used in sports. I think it could really change how people scout other teams and analyze patterns of what players are doing on the field or the rink and any sport. I think it would be really interesting to see that kind of analytics getting used.
Like Moneyball, but at a like completely different level.
Right, so
Automated.
less at the statistical level, but more at the actual player, like what kind of runs do these players make? What moves do they use when they're trying to deke opponents and whatnot? So that'd be interesting.
That
That
is
would be
interesting.
cool.
Think about Madden football. It would be another aspect to it, right? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because I know they're already putting tracking equipment in players like football and they know, even in hockey, they know every time you get on the ice, where you are, how long you've been on the ice. That's all getting tracked now. So it's like there's probably some interesting things you could do with that data, not only in game but after game, and also planning for a game, like how are you going to play against a particular player? And those tendencies, there's certain tendencies you could figure out, but certain ones you can't.
Well, and think about some of the simulators that they have now that they'll use with golfers. They'll put their swing through an analyzer. They could do that same thing with someone throwing a football, someone running down a field to catch a football, whatever you want to do. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Okay, Frank, you had a topic too. Go for it.
Yeah, it's a little premature, but I've been following the LK99 story pretty closely. So if you're not aware, there's apparently been a discovery of a room temperature ambient pressure superconductor. So that came out like a week ago. There was a lot of controversy about the paper. It got kind of released early because it looked like they were afraid of getting scooped. So a portion of the team, and they've been working on this since 1999, which is where the name LK99 comes from. And if it's true, and we're still not 100% sure yet, but it will be world-changing for sure. Right now, superconductors need to be at extremely low temperatures, like in MRI machines or maglev trains, things like that. Or quantum computing. So it takes a massive amount of energy and equipment to keep them at those low temperatures. So if you can have a room temperature one, it would revolutionize energy transfer across power lines, computers. So the heat would go away. So the heat that's generated and wasted goes away, and it would dramatically change the amount of energy that's lost through transmission. And lost in heat. So probably all kinds of things we can't even think of yet if this ends up being true. So
wow,
interesting.
It's pretty exciting. Some results have not been able to corroborate the initial findings, but some are indicating it can, and then some simulations are showing that there's some sort of quantum well would be created, which is what is allowing for this. So it looks there's definitely hopeful that this is going to be true. So,
what does that mean for quantum computers? Anything?
Yeah, so they wouldn't need to be cooled to the real low temperatures. This material is made up of just very simple, basic materials like lead and some different things. So, and just heated to 975 degrees Celsius, if I remember correctly. So something that's not hard to achieve. So it's not real rare earth metals or anything like that. And it's not the ceramics that for years and years that the science kind of went down a certain path that they thought this would be the way to do superconducting. They went away from metals for a long time, but apparently maybe that wasn't the path.
Huh.
Wow.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yep.
So this may be a really interesting year where we end up with big AI breakthroughs, superconductor breakthroughs. Aliens are real. So based on recent congressional testimony, so it's quite the year.
Yeah.
Get the trifecta.
Wow. And you said it was LK99?
Yep.
Okay, 99.
Wow.
I saw that you put that in one of the channels, but I didn't look at it at all. I didn't have a chance
That's
to
new.
look
I had
into
not
it
heard
at all.
that. The only thing I'd heard similar to that is Anarchy 99.
Okay.
Do you know what the reference that is?
No.
No? Xander Cage?
Okay. Gotcha. All
The
right.
bad guys
Yes,
were
yes.
Anarchy 99.
Okay. Good.
Probably named the same way. Wow, that's amazing.
All right, Bill, even though you lost, is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap it up for the day?
I don't think anybody wants to hear any more than I have to say, so I'd say we call it.